Yes, hello everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Here we are today, starting a brand new teaching. It is called Let the Reader Understand. And, well, without further ado, let's get right into it. But before, I'll ask you to bear with me about half a second because I have to share this live that I'm doing with some of my friends that they may follow along. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so here we are. All right. All right, so now that this is done, let's get right into it. So, today's teaching, it is called Let the Reader Understand. And we are going to look into this because it is, I think, is very important. As many of you might know, we are in the end times. And for those who have eyes to see, it must come as no surprise. And since we are in the end times, we need to prepare. Okay? But how must we prepare? Well, some build bunkers deep underneath the ground and they store up foods that can last up to 10, 20, 30 years on the shelf. And you see, there's others that think that they only have to prepare spiritually and you got to make sure that you are rapture ready. Well, today we will see how we are commanded to prepare, but biblically, for what is to come. And or what do we need to know to prepare correctly? We often hear Christians say things like, I don't keep up with all the drama that's going on in the world. It's all too negative. I don't think that God wants us to focus on that. But that couldn't be further from the truth. You see, we are called to be watchers on the wall. Let's look at a few scriptures that tell us to do that. Matthew 24:42. Therefore keep watch. You do not know on what day your Lord is coming. Matthew 24:44. Therefore you also must be ready. Matthew 24:33. When you see all these things, know that it is near. Matthew 24:25. See, I have told you beforehand. Matthew 25:13. Therefore keep watch, for you know neither the day nor the hour. Mark 13:33. Be on your guard, keep awake. Mark 13:35. Therefore stay awake. Mark 13:37. What I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. Luke 12:35, 36. Stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning. Luke 12:37. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds watching when he comes. Luke 12:40. You must also be ready. Luke 21:28. When these things begin to take place, look up, your redemption draws near. Luke 21:31. When you see these things happening, you know the kingdom of God is near. Luke 21:36. But watch at all times praying. Revelation 3 verse 3. If you will not watch, I will come like a thief. Revelation 16:15. Blessed is the one who stays awake. So, for those who call themselves followers of Jesus or Yeshua in Hebrew, we also have a responsibility. If we see the danger come and we do not sound the alarm, we become also responsible if something terrible happens to those we didn't warn. Look in Ezekiel 33, 2-6, it says, Son of man, speak to the children of your people and say to them, when I bring the sword upon a land, and the people of the land take a man from their territory, and make him their watchman, when he sees the sword coming upon the land, if he blows the trumpet and warns the people, then whoever hears the sound of the trumpet and do not take warning, if the sword comes and take him away, his blood shall be upon his own head. He heard, the sound of the trumpet, but did not take warning. His blood shall be upon himself. But he who takes up warning will save his life. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, and the sword comes and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity. But his blood I will require at the watchman's hand. What a mouthful. Now, for all those who know that danger is at the door, are you? Are you warning your brothers? Are you preparing for what is to come? The word is very clear about preparing when you know something is coming. You know, when things are repeated in scriptures, it's to make an emphasis on how important it is to understand it. Let's look at a few proverbs here that tells us just what preparing, how if it's wise to prepare. So the prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple goes on and suffers for it. Proverbs 14:15, the simple believes everything, but the prudent gives thoughts to his steps. Proverbs 7:7, I saw among the simple a man void of understanding. Proverbs 27:12, the prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. You see, it is repeated. So the wise proverbs of Solomon stress the importance of preparing when you see hard times on the horizon. It's like Joseph when he was in Egypt and Pharaoh had the dream of 7 years of abundance and 7 years of famine. And Joseph had Egypt prepare during the 7 years of abundance, and this allowed Egypt to survive during the 7 years of famine. And interestingly enough, in the end times, for some who are familiar with eschatology, it's a fancy word to say the end times, there is a prophesied period of 7 years of very hard times that is supposed to come before the Messiah comes back. It's called the 70th week of Daniel, found in Daniel 9. But we are not going to talk about that much today. Today we will try to focus on how to prepare biblically. We'll talk about that in the next teaching of this series. And to find the instructions on how to prepare biblically, we must read the instruction that Yeshua left for us. It's found in Matthew 24. I'll read. Now he sat on the Mountain of Olives. The disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming at the end of the age? And Yeshua answered and said to them, take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise and deceive many. And because of lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures until the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nation, and then the end will come. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house, and let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant in those to those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been seen since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Whew. Okay, so we must always let scriptures interpret scriptures. You know, the best commentary on scriptures is always going to be the Bible. Now, most Christians, when they are seeking answers to interpret what we just read in Matthew 24, they will usually go in the book of Revelation, but this is where they are mistaken. To interpret Matthew 24 correctly, we must listen to Yeshua. He said, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Therefore, we are strictly commanded by Yeshua to understand the abomination of desolation. This is how we are commanded to prepare here. And of course, this is found in Daniel. The abomination of desolation is found in Daniel 8, Daniel 9, Daniel 11, and Daniel 12. So here, as you can see on the screen, is a little chart to help you understand what Yeshua was talking about. The timeline of the end before the return of Messiah goes like this. First, you have on the left side, you have the beginning of sorrows, which includes war, famine, and pestilences. Then in the middle, you have the abomination of desolation. And then in the last 3.5 years, because it's a 7-year period, in the last 3.5 years, you have the great tribulations. It includes the intense persecution of believers. Basically, the extermination of Christians all across the world. Now, this is what we call the 70th week of Daniel, and it's separated in two periods of 3.5 years. And in the middle, you can see the abomination desolation. So we won't focus on that much today. This will be for the next teaching, but I just wanted you to get a good visual precursor of it, okay? Just for you. Now, how do we know that the abomination of desolation did not happen back then in 70 AD when the temple was destroyed, like many Christians claim? Or how do we know that it did not happen in the Maccabean revolt before Yeshua? Well, the answer is straightforward. First, when Yeshua was referring to the abomination of desolation, it is because his disciple asked him about the time of the end. Matthew 24, verse 3. Now he sat on the Mount of Olives. The disciple came to him privately. Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming at the end of the age? We did read that. Now, of course, the fact that Yeshua answered and pointed forward to the abomination of desolation, it proves that the abomination of desolation could not have already happened, right? Now, also, if you look on the screen, you can see scriptures showing in Daniel, actually 5 times it is repeated in Daniel that the vision is for the time of the end. Daniel 8:17. Understand, O Son of Man, that the vision is for the time of the end. Daniel 8:19. I will make you know what shall be in the latter end of the indignation, for it refers to the appointed time of the end. Daniel 8:26. The vision of the evening and the morning that has been told is true, but seal up the vision, for it is for many days from now. Daniel 10 verse 14. I have to come, make you understand what shall happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision is for days yet to come. Daniel 12 verse 4. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Okay, now, when things are repeated, as I said earlier in scriptures, it's just to make the emphasis on the importance of understanding it. You see, back in the days in Hebrew, there was no punctuation. So when they wanted to make sure that you understand that what was said was important, instead of putting an exclamation mark, they would repeat it, right? So this is what we see right here. Now, let's break down Daniel a little bit. It's going to be very important. Now, this is very difficult to understand, so I'm going to simplify everything so that it is very easy to digest. This vision starts in Daniel 8, and the vision depicts what is going to happen in the time of the end. How the Antichrist comes on the scene, and what the Antichrist will do. We are going to discover why Yeshua absolutely wanted the reader to understand this. So the vision starts with some coded imageries, a ram and a goat. The goat represents, the goat and the ram, they represent two kingdoms. And the goat ends up killing the ram. Then out of the goat kingdom comes out a little horn. And the little horn, who is called it's actually the Antichrist. And this is how it all begins, with a ram and a goat, two kingdoms. And note that this is exactly what Yeshua was talking about, how it all started in Matthew 24, 7 and 8. It says, "For nations will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquake in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." So this is how it all starts. This is how it all unfolds. And to make things very interesting, we also have some information about the ram. Daniel 8:20, it says, "The two-horned ram you saw represents the king of Media and Persia." Now, if we look geographically, Media and Persia is located in modern-day Iran. And if you have been paying attention to the actualities, the news lately, this should ring a bell. There has been a lot of headlines lately about Iran. Actually, we're in the United States is in an ongoing war with Iran right now. And also, look at the ram. How the ram is described in Daniel 8, 3-4. It says, "Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had two horns. And the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will and became great." So, the ram is sent to expand west, north, and south, and that's exactly what Iran has done through ISIS, Hezbollah, and Hamas, and other proxy terrorist organization. It did according to his will and became great. This also describes to a T what Iran has been doing in modern times. Now, the two horns represent two powers, and this is exactly what we see in Iran's leadership to this day. Okay, so above in the image that you see right now, you have the Ayatollahs. Okay, so this is the religious leadership of Iran. So you have Ayatollah Ruhollah Khamenei, which is from 79 to 89. Then you have Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, which is from 89 to 2026. And then you have Mojtaba Khamenei since March 2026. Now, the second Ayatollah, Ali Khamenei, was killed in the ongoing war with Iran, and his son Mojtaba is now the current Ayatollah. So they would represent one of the horns. And then there is also the IRGC. They are the military forces of Iran, as you see on the bottom of the screen, and they are a separate force in Iran who is acting also as a second horn, if you will. And lately, since the war with Iran has been spiraling out of control, the prophecy about one horn growing bigger than the other might just be taking place before us as we speak. You see, since the death of the second Ayatollah, his son took over, but has not made any public appearance. And since then, it has been reported that the IRGC is now calling the shots. So now, not wanting to go into details, but note that we are seeing come to pass something in Iran that has never been observed in history before. So this could very well be the beginning of the end happening right before our own eyes. And now let's now that we have painted a broad picture of the ram, let's go and see what happens to the ram. So now remember that this is very important because this is hello, just a second here. I lost. Hello. Okay. Okay. Uh, hello. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is very important because this is how the Antichrist comes to power. Okay, so Daniel 8, 5 to 6, it says, "And I was considering suddenly a male goat came from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes and came toward the two-horned ram I had seen standing beside the canal and charged at it in great rage. I saw it attack the ram furiously, striking the ram and shattering its two horns. The ram was powerless to stand against it. The goat knocked it to the ground and trampled on it, and none could rescue the ram from its power." So here we can see that the ram is destroyed by a goat, and the goat comes from the west and crosses the whole world without touching the ground. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds just like an airstrike. So, if I'm right, and this prophecy is talking about what's happening right now, you can expect Iran's leadership to be destroyed completely by an airstrike, and this has not happened yet. So now that brings us to the next question. Who is the goat? The goat is explicitly referred to in Daniel as the kingdom of Greece, or in the original language, it says kingdom of Yevon. And yeah, scholars identify it as being the kingdom of Greece, but some scholars think that it refers to modern day Turkey. However, to be correct, today geographically, we wouldn't be able to pinpoint it to one country like we did with the ram. It's really a coalition of countries. A hypothesis is that it could be the United States because, uh, the West operates in a Greco-Roman spirit, and it could be very well the United States today. That would explain why it says that it comes from the west and crosses the whole earth without touching the ground. Now, another option is that it would be referring to a coalition Muslim nation alliance. You see, in the Muslim world, there is a division. So it's divided in two main branches. You have the Shia, who represents 15% of Muslims and are concentrated in Iran, and there are the Sunnis who make up the rest at 85% and are spread in other parts of the world. Now, there is a great rivalry that exists between them, and a religious war between them would be likely to happen if we consider this. You see, the Sunnis and the Shias, the Sunnis they see the Shias. Try to say that 7 times in a row. The Sunnis see the Shias as heretics, and the Shias see the Sunni as heretics. So, can you imagine if their Mahdi would come from one side? The Mahdi is pretty much the Islamic Messiah. And let's say that if the Mahdi was to appear to the Shias, it would be just like today if the Jehovah's Witness would say that Christ has returned and he is a Jehovah's Witness. Well, all Christians, all Christianity, Catholic and Protestants would find that abominable. But unlike Christianity, Islam has access to armies. So this would probably end up in a war. Uh, So now back to the goat, whoever it is. Let's see what happens when the goat once it has defeated the ram. Daniel 8 verse 8. Therefore the male goat grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken, and in its place four notable horns came up towards the four winds of heaven. All right. So far, a goat, not sure who it is exactly, launches an airstrike on Iran, and Iran's two leaders are completely defeated. And then the kingdom of the goat became exceedingly powerful, but ended up being divided in four. So, to make it simple, we need to watch Iran carefully because out of its defeat will come out a victor. And out of the victor, the victor will become very powerful, but something will force it to be divided in four. And you see, this would be possible today with the UN. You see, what if the the Goat Kingdom launches an illegal airstrike on Iran and completely destroy it, and then becomes exceedingly powerful, it wouldn't be surprising that the UN would come in and do damage control and actually divide the kingdom in four. Now that is something that we need to keep our eyes on. And then back to Daniel, let's see what happens next, and it's very important. Daniel 8, verse 9. And out of one of them came out a little horn which grew exceedingly great towards the south, towards the east, and towards the glorious land. Now, this is Daniel's little horn, right? This is the Antichrist. And the Antichrist comes out of a geopolitical conflict that we have just reviewed. And note that the little horn grows towards the south and towards the glorious land, so that's Judea, Jerusalem. So this means that these four kingdoms from, the Antichrist comes out of one of these four kingdoms. And it is located north of Judea. Because as we just read, it, it it went towards the south, towards the glorious land. So this would locate it north of Judea. So this is why some scholars say that Turkey is a very good candidate for the goat. Now, this is interesting because Turkey is the country with the biggest concentration of Sunni Muslims in the world. It also has the strongest Muslim military force in the world, and it is the ninth strongest military in the whole world. So this makes it a very good candidate. So far, everything we have seen describes a geopolitical conflict, but this is about to take a spiritual turn all of a sudden. Now, check this out. Daniel 8:10 to 12, it says, And it grew up to the host of heaven and casted down some of the hosts and some of the stars to the ground and trampled them. He even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Because of transgression, an army was given over to the horn to oppose the daily sacrifices, and he cast truth to the ground. He did all this and prospered. So now, the narrative completely changes. It goes from being a geopolitical conflict and it becomes a spiritual conflict. So the little horn basically challenges Yeshua and his angels. In the spiritual realm, he exalted himself. This goes to show that this is the Antichrist. It's not just a political leader, but he is also demonic. And this is what makes it very interesting, you see, because this is not just a physical event, but it is also a spiritual event. This means that we must consider more than one interpretation for what is written. I repeat, we must interpret the text in more than just the physical. We must also consider the spiritual, because the text goes from spiritual to physical to spiritual. Therefore, we can't only stick with one option. We must consider all the options, right? This is what the text points towards to. Now, we will finish Daniel's vision, and for today, this will be all for Daniel, and we will continue in Daniel in the future. Daniel 8:13. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to that certain one who was speaking, how long will the vision be concerning the daily sacrifices and the transgression of desolation, the giving of both the sanctuary and the host trampled underfoot? And he said to me, for 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. So this is the first mention of the abomination of desolation that Yeshua was warning us about. Here it's called the transgression of desolation. And this is the main thing that Yeshua wants us to understand. But what is the transgression of desolation? Well, gladly, we do not have to guess. You see, the Apostle Paul actually tells us plainly. He says in 2 Thessalonians 2, 3-4, it says, let no man deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the one destined to be destroyed. He opposes himself and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he sits in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be that he is God. So this is the abomination of desolation, and this it's the man of sin sitting in the temple of Elohim, proclaiming himself to be El. Now, this presents us with three options. Either the temple is physical, spiritual, or both. Now, the language that is used throughout Daniel and Revelation in the Gospel suggests a physical temple. It describes armies in Jerusalem and so on. It tells us that those in Judea must flee to the mountains. That's not spiritual. It's boots on the ground. However, we will consider also the possibility that it is talking about a spiritual temple. And why is that? It's because the scriptures describe the follower of Yeshua as being the spiritual temple. Look here in 2 Corinthians 2:14. Now, thank be to God, who always leads us into triumph in Christ, and through us diffuses the fragrance of his knowledge in every place. 1 Peter 2:5. You also, as living stones, are being built in a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. Hebrews 4:14. See then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. Romans 15:16. Ministering the gospel of God, that the offering of the Gentiles might be acceptable, sanctified by the Holy Spirit. Ephesians 5:2. Christ also has loved us and given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling aroma. Romans 12 verse 1. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. 1 Corinthians 3:16-17. Do you not know that you are the temple of God, that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If any man defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him, for the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. 2 Corinthians 6:16. You are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will dwell in them. Hebrews 13:15-16. By him let us continually offer the sacrifice of praise to God, for with such sacrifice God is well pleased. Philippians 4:18. A sweet-smelling aroma, an acceptable sacrifice to God, well-pleasing to God. Philippians 2:17. Yes, if I am being poured out as a drink offering. Psalm 141 verse 2. Let my prayer be set before you as incense. Revelation 5:8. Golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. Revelation 8:3. Much incense, that he should offer it with the prayer of all the saints. Psalm 51:17. The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. 2 Corinthians 2:14-16. He diffuses the fragrance of his knowledge in every place, for we are to God the aroma of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. The one we are the aroma of death leading to death, to the other the aroma of life leading to life. So this is why we cannot ignore the spiritual aspect of it. The scriptures describe a temple in heaven, and it describes us as the spiritual priests, as the temple. Our righteousness is an acceptable sacrifice before Yah. Our prayers are like incense, a sweet-smelling aroma. So if this is talking of the spiritual, then how could the man of sin sit in the temple? How could he put an end to offerings? Well, to put an end to offerings, we would it could look like this. It could be making Christianity or prayers illegal. So this would be consistent with the rest of the book of Daniel. In Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego are commanded to bow down to the statue or be killed. And also Daniel is forbidden to pray to another god than the king, or else he's thrown in the den of lions. So this is really consistent with scriptures. So we need to watch out for this also. Now, we'll end with this. Daniel 12:11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away, the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Now, this is very significant because we are given a clear timeline. This is something that we can all watch out for. Whether the taking away of the sacrifice is literal in a physical temple, or whether it is spiritual as a prohibition of worshiping Yeshua and Yahweh. We can know for sure that the taking away of the sacrifice happens 1,290 days before the abomination of desolation. And why is that so important? Well, it's because at the beginning of this teaching, we saw that the abomination of desolation will launch the great tribulations. This will be worldwide Christian persecution such as the world has never seen before. So this is why Yeshua tells us to stay prepared and watch for this. He loves us. He loves us enough to warn us. So it's because those who know Daniel are given 1,290 days to prepare for the abomination of desolation, that we won't be taken by surprise and will be ready to face the music. All right? So this was part 1 of this teaching. In part 2, we'll be coming back with the 70th week of Daniel, and you'll be first row seat to enjoy such teachings if you want to be. So, conclusion, the reader must understand this, according to Yeshua, what the abomination of desolation is, how it will happen, who is the Antichrist, the little horn, what is the conflict that precedes his appearance. Also today we have started Daniel 8, and in the next one we'll be doing Daniel 9. All right, I hope this teaching has been a blessing to you, and as always, I'll see you in the next one, Yahweh willing. Shalom, shalom.